The following is a presentation of KSL Sports. First and 12. A total roundup of BYU and Utah football and the expanded Big 12 Conference. Subscribe to the First and 12 podcast. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry on KSL News Radio.
Good evening. Welcome on into First and 12 here on KSL News Radio. Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry with you. We are settled into the Big 12 football season. We're getting into this weekly routine, Football Tuesdays here on KSL News Radio. You just heard Cougar Tracks. Now it's First and 12. Coming up a little bit later tonight, you'll hear the BYU football coaches show. Well, actually, no coaches show tonight with Kalani. It's bye week. But anyway.
Bye week. Hey, what are they doing? What are the coaches doing on the bye week? They're going to Cabo?
Yeah, they're just.
Is it like an NBA situation where they're like, before the game was over, I was actually already in an Uber over to the airport to see if I could get out of the country?
Well, if we learned anything in the Big 12, that these coaches, they can't have any time off because the margin is always thin for these Big 12 teams because the AP voters, the media, they always look at the Big 12 where they're just looking for them to fail. We're going to dive into everything that happened in the Big 12. It was a mixed bag in week 2. Some good, some bad, some ugly for the league, and let's dive into it with the Big 12 headlines.
12 headlines.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
The dozen storylines that shaped this week of Big 12 football. Headline 1.
Mitch, I guess we're going to do this through the end of eternity. Anytime the Big 12 is playing other power conferences, we are going to absolutely hold up a mirror to them because that's the standard now, right? So
Yes.
how did you do against the big conferences? That's what everybody wants to know. And mixed results this week, of course, going 3-3. The big kick in the pants of the Big 12 was that ASU loss, of course, at Mississippi State. That's when you think that's where they could get one back. But those are the kind of games that they come up and bite you because you weren't expecting it. Mississippi State wasn't supposed to be a threat to Arizona State. Arizona State was supposed to be right there again, and here they are already outside of the top 25 in week 2.
Yeah, and that's headline 2. Arizona State, they gave up a 58-yard touchdown with 30 seconds left, and they fall to Mississippi State in Starkville. Arizona State was a favorite. They hammered Mississippi State last year, but couldn't get it done with the cowbells ringing down in Stark Vegas.
I don't subscribe to these types of things necessarily, but they did do an all-out blitz also against Texas in the bowl game. That was the last time they got beat in a close game, and that did not work out for Kenny Dillingham and his guys, but we'll see what they can turn things around in conference play once they get there. Baylor, that comeback, I watched the entire thing. Like I went top to bottom, and I was disappointed at the front end because you're just waiting for Baylor.
Same. Because
the first tip ball that goes from Jennings and it ends up being a 75-yard touchdown that could have easily just been an interception. Instead, it rips off this moment where Jennings goes 11 for 11, 260 yards and 3 touchdowns in the first half. But Sawyer Robertson, we knew this about him. He's a really good quarterback. He responded, and to come back and get that win on the road at ranked SMU was as big of a deal as you could get in the weekend. We were about to have to hit the paddles and get Baylor going if that wouldn't have happened. But nice turnaround for Dave Aranda and his guys. That's a big-time move.
I'm convinced that Dave Aranda has 9 lives. Every week it feels like I'm saying Dave Aranda's going to get fired, and then later in the game, he's back again.
I'm impressed with him. Yeah.
Headline 4, Kansas had a lead with 8:45 remaining in the border war against Missouri in the fourth quarter, but Mizzou reeled off 14 unanswered to take down the Jayhawks in the return of a rivalry game.
In that game, weird moment that I think not a lot of people paid attention to, and most people wouldn't think to themselves to even ask, and certainly the officials didn't think to themselves to ask.
This was wild.
It was nuts because the Big 12 today announced that they are suspending the officiating crew, that Big 12 officiating crew from that Kansas-Missouri game, because after a touchdown that led to an unsportsmanlike conduct in Missouri, which would have backed them up on to their own 20 to kick off, they said, well, we'll do the free kick thing. We're going to punt. Because if you get a safety, you're allowed to have the free kick. On a normal kickoff, you cannot do it and just say, well, we're backed up, we're going to punt. The officials let it roll, and that was in direct violation. The punt was booming, and it put Kansas back. It could have changed the way that game it could have changed the outcome of the game for sure, and that's why the Big 12 said, hey, look, we have a high standard. These guys weren't up to it. They're suspended.
And I think it gets magnified, too, when it's a non-conference matchup. And
they needed it.
They from the optics standpoint, they don't want to make it look like Big 12 officials are trying to give an upper hand to Big 12 teams. So I think that was the right move to boot that officiating crew for this upcoming week. You don't see that very often.
We're going to do a full breakdown of 16 Article 6 of the NCAA football rules later in the program. That'll be a full segment just dedicated to that.
Headline 6, Iowa State beats rival Iowa at its own game in tough Cy-Hawk rivalry win at home, 16-13. First win in Ames over Iowa since 2011. That was a big victory. It was what you would expect from a Cy-Hawk game where it's a bunch of field goals, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, but Iowa State comes out on top. Yeah,
I think when we looked at these actual numbers, everybody kind of went that 10-6, 13-7 type of an outcome, and there we were. They blew the over right out of the water on this one, I'm assuming, because those guys like to take those low numbers on Iowa and Iowa State. So, Colorado and their third-string quarterback, Ryan Staub, gets that 31-7 win over Delaware. The Blue Hens hung in there for a little bit. That's a nice little FCS program. That was so condescending. I apologize to Delaware. No, but the reports are that he might be the starter over Caden Salter this week and Juju Lewis. They're a pair of 5-star guys that are supposed to be their dudes. I don't know what's going on in Colorado. Look, 31-7, everybody feels like it should have been a 67-7 type of game.
Well, and it felt like they were treating that game as a preseason game like the NFL, where let's give all these quarterbacks a chance to evaluate. It was just going to be just an opportunity for every quarterback to get some run. And now with Ryan Staub, the third string, just tearing it up in that game, he might now be the starter. It's a wild turn of events in Boulder. Headline 8, Oklahoma State gets destroyed at Oregon 69-3 in 3 quarters.
Yeah.
It begs the question, is this the end of Mike Gundy? Second worst loss in Oklahoma State's history, behind only a 67-point loss in 1907, Alex.
If Mike Gundy doesn't say those comments about Oregon during the week, do you think that that's a 41-7 game instead?
Yes, absolutely. We talked about it last week.
He ran his mouth, and I think Dan Lanning was like, do you want to know what the difference is? 66 million. So we beat you by 66. Yep. That's how we're going to teach you how to do it. That might be, I mean, honestly, they're going to expect a lot in Stillwater, and they've got to turn a corner, and maybe that big shock to the system has to be that Mike Gundy needs to go even before the season's up.
Yeah, it's crazy how fast things have turned. We'll hear more from Mike Gundy coming up a little bit later. Headline 9, BYU wins by a comfortable margin against Stanford, 27-3, but the offense clearly has areas they need to improve.
Yeah, and I think that's what everybody's looking at, and they go, all right, well, that's a terrible Stanford team. And yeah, you beat them by 24 points, and you only let them score 3 points. That's a great outcome most years. This type of year, I think people look at it and they go, yeah, there's some sputtering going on there. The freshman needs to still work out some things, and there's some polish that BYU has to have, I think, before they do enter the top 25. Headline number 10, Utah getting to their pick 6 streak. They're getting it out of the way early. Last year, everybody's doing the countdown. Get it out of the way, game 2. They do it against Cal Poly, but that defense is legit, and they do this every year. It's 22 years in a row they've had a pick 6. They beat Cal Poly in absolutely stunning fashion. Like, they are really, really rolling. It took 1 minute to get their offense going, but once they did, blew Cal Poly out of the water, and Utah looks as good as anybody in the entire conference.
Yeah, the execution maybe in the first half wasn't as clean as the UCLA game, but still, you're putting up more than 60 points. Like last year against anyone, that would have been a huge ask
over
for Utah's offense.
Over 1,000 yards in 2 games for the Utes. That's wild.
Headline 11, West Virginia loses at Mac School, Ohio. Not the Ohio State, Ohio. Jaheim White, the preseason first team all Big 12 running back. He suffered a first half injury. He's now out for the season, and so is one of their top receivers, Jaden Bray. Not looking good early for Rich Rod's team in for year 1.
No, and these are the unfortunate things that happen. You know, you have your best player on your team, Jaheim White. We like seeing guys like him in the Big 12 because they're stunning runners. They're really, really good. They're the type of guys that put programs like West Virginia that are down a little bit, they put them on the map, in a down year. Rich Rod's going to have a really hard go trying to get those guys going again, because once they start going back home, and then they're going to come out to Provo here in a couple of weeks, and it could be nasty for West Virginia and Rich Rod when they come out to Provo.
Headline 12, as we close this thing out, Kansas State falls at home to an Army team that started a backup quarterback. They lose 24-21. K-State had a 99-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. Then Army took over with a 13-play drive, and they just really took over the game from there and recovered an onside kick. Not looking good for Chris Klein. We joked a couple weeks ago on our season premiere show of First and 12. We're like, oh, maybe they're going to be like Florida State and Nebraska and start to lose all these games. We're like, no, that won't happen. They won't have the Ireland hangover. Clearly it's happening. They're 1-2, and their one win was barely over North Dakota.
Yeah, and that North Dakota game was kind of that albatross. Everybody's looking at it and going, what's going on here? And then it happened. They had to pay $1.1 million to lose to Army. But you know what? Your donation to the Armed Services of the United States Army is appreciated. Thank you so much, Chris Kleinman. That's our first segment of the day. We got our first break coming up, and we're going to get our takeaways, the big picture stuff from week 2. Inside the Big 12, it is First and 12 right here on KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM. You can also download the podcast wherever fine podcasts are found. Mitch, Harper, Alex, Kirry. We'll be right back.